Yes.
Can you?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. I always assume that, but now you were so quiet, and I thought maybe
Yeah.
I'm also on mute.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so it's a great pleasure to be here today in this meeting and be able to present ReSvinn for all of you. I was really impressed by all the presentations and all the expertise that are in the room today. So I will talk about a project that we in Swedish called ReSvinn, and we say very shortly that it's about less waste and more food. And ReSvinn has the project goal that we want to develop efficient redistribution systems for surplus food in Sweden. So we've just looked there a bit at the definitions that we have in that first sentence. So surplus food is food that is in the risk zone of becoming food waste because the company or organization that has it for a moment cannot sell it to the customer that they had planned for. So it can, for example, be a wholesaler that can't sell the food to the restaurants because there are some damage on it, but it's still edible. Or it can be a store that has ordered too much milk, which has soon passed the best before date, but the milk is still okay and good to drink. And the redistribution is then that you try to find another organization that can take this food that you cannot sell to your customers. And redistribution you can work with everywhere in the food supply chain basically, but our focus in ReSvinn you can see here on the second line. So it's from stores and wholesalers to restaurants and schools. And we work with this project and against this goal because there are two effects that we hope we can contribute to, both in the short term and in the long term. And the first one is that we want to reduce the food waste that occurs at retailers and wholesalers in Sweden. The second goal is linked to the households. And in Sweden, by far, the most food waste occurs at our homes. And there is a lot of information online in the media and so forth about how you can reduce food waste. But what we think is that it's important that you get this information in very different ways. So what we are looking at here is how the restaurants and schools that receive this food from retailers and wholesalers, that they also work with communication towards their guests and students in the school, so they can be there and encourage and communicate and educate on how you can reduce the food waste at your households. And what we actually realized during the project is that this we're working with communication material here, and also that the stores are also really interested in Sweden to learn more about how they can talk to their customers about reducing food waste. So that is what we try to achieve. We started the journey with ReSvinn with a pre-study that we did in 2019. And there we looked a lot at redistribution systems that were currently running in Sweden. And we had a lot of interviews and workshops where we tried to understand then, so what is it that we need to develop to make these systems efficient, and most of all, make it easy for new actors to start working with distribution that haven't done it previously. And we identified these 5 building blocks. That is now when we have the bigger, larger project, what we build the project around. So the first one is logistics. And when it comes to logistics, a main focus here is to find transports that are efficient, so it doesn't become more expensive to rescue the food and redistribute it instead of throwing it away. When you look at the different costs in a redistribution solution, the transport costs is really high. So here we are working towards a KPI for tests that we are running, and the KPI is transport cost per rescued kilos of food. So what we want to ensure is that it doesn't cost more to transport the rescued food than to buy new similar food. Then we have the second area, which business models, and that is my colleague Ulrika, who is with us in the call today as well. It's her expertise area and she is responsible for that. But what we are looking at here is it's new companies and organizations that are going to collaborate that haven't done it previously. For example, it's quite uncommon that stores work with restaurants or schools directly. So here we want to ensure that we have business models that both encourage collaboration, where all the different partners in the systems feel that they are both contributing and getting things in equal terms. So we are both looking at cost distribution, but also a lot around the soft factors, how you get a fruitful collaboration that will last long. Then we have the third area with IT, and IT you can do a lot of things with, and you shouldn't use IT just for the sake of it. When we have done the need analysis for different kind of IT solutions, we have seen that they were primarily free areas where the companies and organizations involved felt that IT could help them make the systems more efficient. The first one regards traceability. So that when you work with the distribution, you should be able to feel comfortable that you are following the laws and regulations that there are. Then the second area is transport and logistics information. Of course, when you have these collaborations, there will be changes. One day the store doesn't have anything to give, the school might be closed, the transport might be running late, and it's important that you have systems that give information when there are changes to the pre-decided plan. And then the third area that we work with is sales platforms, marketplaces was the word I was looking for. Where so that when you are, for example, a store that have surplus food, that you can find the restaurant or the school that can receive it, and the same goes for wholesalers then. And here I'm very happy that we have Why Waste on board, because Why Waste Sweden is a very important project partner for us here, and they have actually just finished developing an IT solution for us, so the stores can work with the traceability issues in a very efficient way. So we are very happy for that. Then we have the fourth area with communication. So this is the communication that the schools and restaurants will do towards their customers and students, so that they can educate and encourage them to reduce food waste in the households. So here we work with different kind of information material and communication guidelines that they can use. Then we have the fifth area, and that's the restaurants transition. It can also be the schools transition. And when we looked at the system and the different actors that take part of it, what we saw in the pre-study is that the group that has to make the largest adaptations to how they are currently working are the receivers of the surplus food. In other words, the restaurants and the schools. What they have to do is that they have to be a lot more flexible. I mean, beforehand they could order exactly what they wanted and they knew in advance what they would get, and they could plan a menu. I mean, they could plan menus in advance for weeks if they want. When you work with surplus food, you cannot do that. Often you don't know exactly what you get until you get it. Hopefully with the IT solution that we now have, you can get the information maybe half a day or a day earlier. But what we see now is that you don't know what you get until you get it, and then you need to take care of it, often quite direct. So here we're looking at how we can help the restaurants to move into this more flexible way of working. And a little bit about how we work. We have working groups for all the 5 building blocks that we have. And here the purpose is that we want to produce material and knowledge that can be used straight away for actors or companies, organizations that want to set up this kind of collaboration with redistribution. So it's very much about developing solid recommendations and materials that can be used straight away. But what we believe is that it's very good to have workshops and interviews and meetings, but you will learn absolutely most when you're actually trying things. So a large part of the project is focused on actually doing tests where we have wholesalers, shops or retailers, it should say, restaurants, schools, and logistics company that are involved. So I think so far in the project we have had 10 different tests running where we actually set up this kind of redistribution systems, and it has been really interesting, and we have learned so much from doing that. So it's very interesting to follow all the tests. If you want to do that, it's a lot of information in Swedish, but if you're on Instagram, I don't know if that is as big in Brazil as in Sweden, I kind of guess it is, then you can look at the hashtag ReSvinn, and you can, it's particularly the schools and restaurants that are receiving food that are posting things there from their tests. So it's a easy way to start following the tests. Yeah, the text is of course in Swedish, but the pictures you can see. And we started in the end of 2019, and we will continue the year out. So we are a bit more than halfway through the project now. And this is my favorite slide because we are very many project partners. For now, we are 44 partners. Next week, I hope we'll be 50. We are just taking in 6 new project partners. So we are, as far as I know, the largest food waste project in Sweden, if you look at how many project partners you have. And this is really the project strength as well, because we have project partners that have so much knowledge for the different areas that we are working with, and there is also so much engagement. It's the people representing these organizations, they really want to do something and really drastically remove the food waste, which is great. To the left, you see the restaurants and schools that we have on board. I will not go into details about the different Swedish restaurants that we have, but it's both when it comes to the schools and the restaurants, we have those that have been working with rescuing surplus food for many years, but we also have the ones that are fresh out and started doing it through the projects. And that I think is great, that we have both the more experienced ones and the beginners. Then we have 5 actors developing IT systems. And as I mentioned, the Why Waste has been the main contributor here, developing a system for traceability. And it's also linked to one of the transport providers that also have a tech platform for logistics, which is Gordon, up to the right in the corner. So the solution actually also includes both traceability, but also being able to get better information about the logistics. Then in the middle, at the bottom, we have the companies representing the wholesalers and retailers where the waste occurs that we are trying to rescue. So it's very nice for you who know the Swedish retailer market. We have ICA that has roughly half of the market in Sweden, and then Coop and Bergendal, and I think that they together maybe have 25% or something. So don't quote me on this now, but we have roughly 75% of the market represented. And we have it both then on the national level, on the central level, but then there are also individual stores that are in part of the project. So it's nice that we work on both those levels. And then we also have the two by far largest wholesalers for restaurants and HoReCa wholesalers in Sweden, Menigo and Martin och Servera. Then we have 4 transport providers on board in the project. PostNord is one of the largest one in Sweden. Gordon is one specializing on food logistics in the last mile delivery. And then we have Move by Bike and Pling, who have cargo bikes. And then we also have some experts on communication on board. And then it's us at Chalmers Industriteknik, who is the project manager. And yeah, we are basically a research institution. Yes, and you understood that it was me talking here. So I'm really curious about all your questions now. But if you come up with something later on that you want to know, please don't hesitate to call me. It's really interesting to work with food waste prevention. So I'm happy to get all kind of input. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristina,